Hello, and welcome to Theory in Plain English, How Reading Identities Are Formed. This is the second in a series of videos about reading identities. The first video provided you with an explanation about the broader concept of identity, and more specifically, reading identities. In today's video, you will learn how reading identities are formed. Recall from the first video that reading identities can be understood as how capable individuals believe they are in comprehending texts, the value they place on reading, and their understandings of what it means to be a particular type of reader within a given context. A person's reading identity is different from their self-efficacy. For example, I think of myself as a very good reader. That's my reading identity. However, if you were to give me a complex engineering text to read, I would have low self-efficacy. I would not believe that I would be successful at comprehending the text. This is because I know I do not have the background knowledge needed to understand an engineering text. I am not an engineer. However, knowing I would have extremely limited comprehension of an engineering text does not change my overall reading identity. I know I am a good reader, but I know realistically that I cannot read everything well. See how my identity as a reader doesn't change even though my self-efficacy is poor in this example? That's an important difference. So how are reading identities formed? Students' reading identities are formed over time through their repeated experiences with texts in school. Students who have regular negative interactions will likely develop a belief that they are poor readers, while students who have regular positive interactions will likely develop a belief that they are good readers. Students also form their reading identities based on their understandings of the models they believe exist. Recall from the first video that students are often presented with a good reader, poor reader dichotomy. Students will learn what it means to be considered a good or poor reader and will categorize themselves accordingly. A key element of how students' reading identities are formed is connected to the language they hear about reading and what it means to be a reader. For example, students will listen to what you say good readers do, and they will pick up implicitly on what poor readers do. How you describe what it means to be a reader in your class helps to shape or reinforce students' reading identities. Students tend to get assigned reading identities based on how they interact with texts, the ways they contribute to class discussions about texts, and their reading assessment scores. In order for a student to be thought of as a particular type of reader by others, they must demonstrate the qualities that are connected to that identity. This means that while students can have some control over their reading identities, their identities are also assigned to them by others who are assessing them in relation to what it means to be a particular kind of reader. The next video in this series will focus on how students' reading identities influence their academic literacy development, and will conclude by looking at how teachers can respond to students' reading identities. Here are some additional references if you are interested in reading about reading identities further. And for ideas on how to apply current literacy theory and research to your classroom, check out my blog, leahall.wordpress.com.